Welcome everyone. We're at Nutrition Farms in Applethorpe, one of the two research demonstration farms, and we're here today producing a whole range of new videos of the How to Do It series that's proved so popular. Now, one of the things, what we're going to talk about now, if you know me, you know I've got this hard science background, and you might think, what's he mucking around with this witchcraft? Well, the lesson here, and it's a very powerful lesson, is that you don't close your mind to anything. The only loser from a closed mind is that person who closed their mind. There's much that we have yet to understand, and there's certainly not huge science, but there's ridiculous anecdotal reports, and I've seen it from my very own eyes relative to this thing that's part of a larger picture called energy agriculture. So we're talking here about the Biodynamic Field Broadcaster, which was gifted to me by the wonderful Hugh Lovell, who created these in conjunction with his neighbour in Georgia, Dr. Galen Hieronymus. They created this device. Now, let's talk about why they created it and how and what the purpose was. We're talking about a whole field of agriculture that kind of is almost like homeopathic agriculture called biodynamics. Now, you may have heard about it. It involves things like burying some cow manure in a horn at a very precise time where the moon and planets and so forth are positioned, and digging it up at a precise time, and really what you've got a couple of tablespoons or more of a compost that's been created, but it doesn't act like a normal compost. You use very small amounts of it, you put it into a tank, you might have 5,000 or 3,000 litre tank or whatever, and you reverse stir it. Used to be done by hand, and of course you create a vortex. You create one way with a vortex and you break it up and go the other way, which is what a river does with the eddies in a stream. So it's kind of mimicking a natural process. The vortex is the path of least resistance. There is some science here. And so we're talking about things like etheric energy, which we now call scalar energy in quantum physics. The atmosphere is filled with energy, that you're hauling that in, and you're hauling oxygen more efficiently into it, but there's something else energetically happening with that reverse stirring. So the BD preps, and there are a variety of them. 500 is the one with the cow manure. There's 501, which Steiner was considerably ahead of the game relative to the importance of silica. He used in his herbal formulations things like horsetail, which is the highest source of silica, and 501, which is really effective, we've tried it in the field several times, is actually micronized silica quartz, and very, very fine, and it sort of creates and magnifies a photosynthetic response and brings light where there wouldn't be light with that tiny, tiny particles of quartz. And of course, some of that will be available as silica if it gets fine enough. So he was ahead of the game on that front. He used to talk about soil and atmospheric management with his various preparations, as they're called. But while it's relatively inexpensive, it's time consuming, and there are times that you put out all of the 10 plus preps. And what Hugh came up with was what would happen if we set up this thing that he developed with Galen Hieronymus, this broadcasting tower where you take the preps and you put them into the preps relative to atmospheric management, put inside this little well here, and I'll show you here. You just unscrew that, it's got a seal on it, it's got a little jar inside it, and you've got your little tubes, several of them, that are relative to the preps for atmospheric management. And 501, the silica prep, would be one of those, for example. Now, and then you've got the soil that BD preps that are relative to the soil, and so there's a second well down the bottom here, and that contains 500 and a variety of other preps. Now, when Hugh gave this to me, he was living at my house at the time, and for Christmas he gave me this tower, and I had a different research farm at the time, and I thought, well, I'm going to test this because I am always skeptical, and it's fairly unusual to say the least. So we took this farm, and Hugh dowses, and there are people that can do this, I can't, but they dowse for the spot where there's a triple ley line that fuels this. So it's got a copper wire in between it, and you're taking the vibration of whatever the supplement for the soil or the atmosphere, and you're broadcasting it out, but you need an energy source to broadcast it, so you've got to have someone who can dowse and pick a triple ley line. Of course, if we look at basically every cathedral in Europe, they, for many hundreds of years past, the pulpit has always been dowsed for and positioned on a triple ley line, and that gives you a lot of energy while you've got your half-hour or 1 hour sermon, but you don't want to stay there indefinitely. It's why the Aboriginal people who are still switched on will not sleep in a house with a triple ley line, because it drains you. And I had an experience with my one of the people who co-founded Nutritic, my ex-wife Rosa, where she was just completely written off, and no one could explain it. They said chronic fatigue, but the testing didn't confirm that. and we eventually discovered that her desk was positioned on a AAA line, and her bed, it was the house we were working from at the time, and we had to go do this whole process to remove that, and there's a whole thing called earth acupuncture that can move it. It's fairly unusual, but very valid because her life changed on the extent of that. So basically, he dowsed the spot, then he made up the preps for me. So we've got this energy coming up, and you can actually sometimes see a little heat haze come out of the top, of visible, like you're looking down a highway on a hot day if you've got it in the right spot. And that powers this pumping out, and it can do up to 1,000 acres. So I said to Hugh, so I bought this farm, was 280 acres, ex-dairy property that was now very much a neglected beef property. And I said to Hugh, well, we can do 1,000 acres, I could do the neighbours, but I want to control. And so how can you treat a row of radishes or 1,000 acres? And this is the part that really sort of tests you if you come from a more scientific background, because it certainly tested me at the time. What you do is that you write in your hand, you include a map. It can be a council map, or obviously you can use Google Earth to get yourself a map. You mark the area that you want treated, and then you write a message, and you broadcast your intent out across the paddock. So I wrote a message: I hereby ask that only the area within the marked boundaries be treated. Thank you. And that message is inside this little bottle in a plastic bag to make sure that the water doesn't get to it, because if this leaks, which sometimes it can do. And so I'm broadcasting my message. So I do this on the very first trial of this machine at that farm. And then I thought, well, I'm going to go to all the effort of doing soil test, soil life test, and leaf test before I start and through the process of treating to see if there's anything to it. Then why just use BD preps? Why not test the soil, test the leaf, and test the soil life and put everything? We had to get tiny, tiny vials of the calcium that was lacking. So we used some calcium carbonate, and then we're using the sort of nutrition farming tools, the humic, the fulvic, the kelp, which is more appropriate. Well, humic for the soil, fulvic for the top, kelp could be either, but we put it in the top as a photosynthesis enhancer, which it very much is, as fulvic is, and all the trace minerals and the microbes. And so we put things that were lacking. There was no microbes or fungi, so we broadcast this whole shooting box out. There were so many little vials in each of these things. It was crazy. And we put our message and broadcast the message, and then we waited. And I started testing, and I tested every 2 weeks. And the trial only went for 3 months because there's a massive storm on the farm, and a tree fell on this, and I got it repaired and brought it to this farm eventually. But what you need to know is that the boundary line was the farm had been divided from a 500 acre into two. Ours was 280, his was 220. Same history. Dairy and then neglected beef, identical soils, no fertilising history at all on them in recent years, and so we've got a direct control. We've got the fence line, and what you need to know is that every measurable parameter changed every time I test, and the visibility. In fact, there's a photo somewhere of this 3 shades green on the fence line. I mean, you've got to see it to believe it. It is truly remarkable, or it was. And so what I'm saying is, there's only one loser if you close your mind. And many people say, well, that sounds like absolute rubbish. Well, see it and do it. And there are many, many of these towers, Hugh Lovell towers, dotted across Australia, and people make all sorts of claims about them. And what we will mention here, pretty relevant for my situation on the apple farm, is I've had a terrible season last season with pressure from parrots, from lorikeets. But one of the things you can do with a tower is the concept of peppering. Now, this is a biodynamic concept, and the biodynamic concept of peppering is you take your offending rabbit or crow or whatever's relevant, you kill it and you ash it, and then you broadcast the ash at a precise time. You dilute it and broadcast it. It's called peppering, and it's very much linked to phases of the moon and planets and so forth. It's the whole weird thing that Steiner came up with. But I was, at one of my 5-day courses, I had a large-scale cherry grower from Tasmania, conventional cherry grower, who's coming to learn some tricks and strategies and so forth. And he stood up when we were talking pest management and said, I need to contribute at this point. I had problems with crows, and I'm talking serious problems. I'm talking the loss of millions of dollars, 28% of my crop one season to crows. We had gas guns, and then the local neighbours put a petition in because they didn't like the noise, and so then we had the shotguns, and we were losing 25%. It was pretty much ineffective. And someone said, why don't you shoot a couple of crows, send them to the BD Institute, the Biodynamic Institute in Melbourne, get them to ash, find a biodynamic grower in Tasmania, and get him to tell you when and how to put it out. And he thought, what can I lose? open mind, he did exactly that, and he said, what you need to know is that I've not seen a crow on the place in 18 months. Now, there's no research on this, but don't close your mind to it. There's so much potential. I've got another grower who grows lychees, massive old variety, 150-year-old trees, 3.5 tons per tree. We're talking about this massive tree that looks like a massive fig tree. You need really high cherry pickers and extended ladders to get to pick it all, but big problems with bats. He's just got a few of these trees, but 3.5 tons is a lot of lychees. I mean, do the sums. At the cost of lychees, it's about 20 grand per tree. I mean, it's insane to think of. But so he decides that one of the bats has to have an accident that perhaps potentially involved lead, although they're protected, so it could have flown into something. But anyway, he had this accident with one of the bats, ashed it, put it into his little barbecue with the top on it, turned it into a little ball of ash, then took the ash and put it in his broadcasting tower. And broadcast it, and immediately, I mean, this is a really good story, and I've seen it, I've been to his farm. Immediately, he had half the pressure. And he thought, you beauty, but why only half the pressure? Why half as the losses that I'd had the rest of the week when they was coming in and turning the sky black when the bats come in? It's crazy, it's scary. And so then he realised there's two bats. There's a grey bat and there's a brown bat. So then there was a grey bat, the first one, so then a brown bat. I had to have some kind of accident because you can't shoot them, it's illegal of course, and that ended up in this little barbecue, and then he had to control it, and it actually worked. So it's certainly something that's worth looking at. There's no doubt. So you don't write off anything. People will take their predominant weed and take the seed and ash it and broadcast the seed out. This is all called peppering under biodynamic principles, but fascinating and worth exploring. For sure. Well, there's lots of growers we know that have got them and make all sorts of claims relative to them. Now, in our experience, this year I'm going to charge it up, and I'm not sure. I said that I can dowse for a lot of things, and I dowsed for this triple A, and I'm not sure that I got it right, and I might get someone who's a bit more experienced to get it out there. And then we'll actually layer it with all of the things that we want broadcast over the orchard. I'm not sure if we can manage the ash concept, but the peppering concept, but we certainly could with some of the weeds and whatever. But the birds, if we find a dead bird laying around somewhere, then it might end up in this tower, and we'll test that this season. Now we did come across a dead chlorella, and we had a lot of pressure on the block next door here from chlorellas, and we put the chlorella ash into this thing, and they just circled for 2 days and then disappeared. So again, there's some real promise there. Now, there was a story with lorikeets, and we got no response. And so then you say, well, but we don't know that we've got the right variety of lorikeet. We just took what we found that had been banged into a net somewhere and killed itself. So we just used that, and I didn't check whether it was the right lorikeet. So anyway, you don't close your mind. You investigate everything, and the only winner will be you. So wishing you the best of luck with that. Thanks for listening.